good opportunity for everybody to get together who like Mustangs, love Mustangs, build Mustangs, repair Mustangs, to exchange, in one forum and generally shoot the breeze.
They really have helped keep the 51 alive.
I don't know how many are still flying, but probably got the majority of them here.
One thing that we all share, even though we have different careers and lifestyles and places to live, is that we all have a passion for this machine.
It's awesome and a once in a lifetime. I mean, we haven't seen this many since we were escorting bombers.
You have more Mustangs here than I ever saw on a single air base. They're all there to make it look like it's the king of the sky, which it was.
It's incredible to be around these guys that are legends and to be in the legend tent and have a World War II Triple Ace come up and compliment me on my show. Yeah, I spent a lot of time just standing outside because the sound of the P-51 engine flying over and then multiple flyovers, it takes you back to a place you've never been, that I've never been, and back to a world where the fighter world that I live in now started, and it's pretty cool.
This is a great tribute to a great machine.
It's the first time I've seen a formation of P-51s like that since World War II.
A terrific feeling of nostalgia. I have a long love affair with the P-51.
A one-time event, baby, one-time event, and it's a thrill and a privilege to be here and be able to fly in it.
They're national treasures.
This is the largest gathering of all these airplanes since World War II, and I don't know if it'll ever happen again.
A P-51 was like night and day. It could stay in the air 8 hours. On D-Day, I logged 6 hours and 55 minutes. I still had another hour's worth of fuel left.
Coming back, one of the things that I would do is I would roll the Mustang on its back and hang by my seatbelt just to take the pressure off of my rear.
It was the epitome as far as I was concerned. It had better performance, better speed. You could dive it up to 505 miles an hour.
When you get in it, it feels like you become part of the airplane. You had to use extra caution in taxiing and all because you got this long nose out in front of you and keep S-ing all the time to clear out front.
It just seemed to fly itself almost.
It does what you tell it to do when you tell it to do it.
You put it on. That long nose, you didn't see any more runway. When you hit the throttle, I pulled on up, and I think I made my first turn. I was 10 miles in Mexico. I was so full of adrenaline, my feet were bouncing all over the rudder pedals, and I could hardly steer it, taxiing back to the base.
It was just a beautiful plane to fly.
It'll fly itself almost, really.
Mustang was light on the controls, quick to pick up speed, climbed beautifully, and we just felt very good about it.
It was big and powerful and heavy guns on it. It made a difference.
You know, if I could go back to that time and be with these guys, I would do it in a heartbeat.
It's Thursday. The air show starts tomorrow. We can hear the thunder in the background. We had hoped for a clear day today. The forecast was pretty good. We got up this morning. It's not very good. Here's the Columbus area. We're just down south here at Rickenbacker Air National Guard Base. What we hope is going to happen now is this band is going to move through and it's going to start to clear up this afternoon. But that puts us behind. We have a lot of people that are supposed to come in today who are sitting on, there's a front going through and they're sitting down here in Kansas just waiting to come in here.
Today we flew in from Peoria, Illinois, but initially we started our initial flight out of Jerome, Idaho, and that was yesterday. And we made it all the way to Peoria, and then we had a weather problem here, so we decided to overnight there. So that's what we've done. And we waited until the weather broke up here a little bit, and then we came on in.
What we're seeing outside today is what we're glad is happening today and not tomorrow. It's going to affect some of the arrivals a little bit today, but it's going to move out. And with as dry as things have been here, this will keep the dust down. This will make things actually pretty nice for the rest of the weekend.
My name's Stephen Gray, and I've been around a Mustang for about 30 years. And I've had 4 of them, and this is one of them. It's called Twilight Tear. And Twilight Tear was a name adopted by the original pilot, a guy called Hubert Davis. And it was a famous racehorse in the 40s that won everything. So it's a pretty apt name for a Mustang. We found that it was a totally original airplane, never really been reskinned or anything like that, but lots of battle damage repairs all over it. And we think that's pretty neat. So we thought we'd bring it out here and stand it amongst all the shiny ones. You see the rainbow from the exhaust on this airplane. You see it's slightly sooty in there. That's because this engine runs with original stock rings. Looks dirty, but it's very, very effective. That's how they should look. This is bunches of guys who've been holding this to turn the airplane around. Pretty easy to replace. There are bunches of guys who make new ones with these, but it's part of the character. If it was dangerous, I'd change it, but it's not. That's tempered steel that's attached down the side of the airplane to the bottom of the airplane, and also serves as a rollover structure. If you were to go over without that, you'd be squished. With that, you have a chance of surviving. We had to get an export license out of England for it, and an import license into the US, and we then took it carefully apart.
Marvelous. Just need to get it in the hangar now.
Put it in a big container and shipped it to the nearest port we could think of, which was out in Pennsylvania. And we shipped 3 of my guys out, and they put it together in 4 days.
Okay, cool. The aeroplanes were designed to be moved around the world during the war, so the maintenance manual is very clear and precise in what you actually have to do, what you can take apart and what you shouldn't take apart. And it busts down into sort of easy sections, and it was just basically broken down to component form for shipment and reassembly as easy as possible, just as they were done at wartime. Having gone through the process of actually dismantling it and putting it back together, it was never going to be easy, but in comparative terms, it's a very simple aeroplane. It's very well built. A lot of the British aeroplanes, such as the Spitfire, are over-complex for what they are. This was very, very rugged, very easy to work on.
Yesterday we launched out of there and got here before dark, just before dark.
We were protecting the bombers, 30,000 range. Most of the fighters, German fighters, had been chased away, so we had a permission then to follow the last ones leaving to destroy them and be more successful. So I tacked on to the 109. He was too good. Every trick I'd pull, he had an answer for. He had some tricks, and I had an answer for him. We fought all the way down to 5,000 before anyone did any damage. I got some hits in his engine, started him smoking. And he got scared, so he says, I'm going to run over Paris and let the aircraft boys take care of him. I would look through the heavy barrage that they sent up, still behind him. He ducked under the Eiffel Tower. When he pulled up from under there, I was right under him, was able to destroy him. So that was, I've heard people years later talk about, oh, I was there. I remember that. The Parisians celebrated for days. And it felt good to know that somebody realized something good happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Is this the place to be? Yes, it is. Welcome to Columbus, Ohio. My name is Wayne Boggs. I'll be your air boss. Before we get into any of this, there's one gentleman that definitely needs to stand up and address each and every one of you. The horse himself. Ooh, yeah.
Guys, I just want the record to show that the 6:30 brief was not my idea. First off, thanks for everybody here. This is absolutely great. The best of the best. So all I can say is, let's just do it safe. If it isn't 100%, if you're not 100%, no problem. The biggest objective is safety on this whole thing. As we've had a bad record, we've lost a lot of people this year, a lot of friends. I don't want to lose anybody else. Thanks for being here. Keep it safe and let's have some fun.
Before we actually get into the brief, I want to echo what Lee says. Ladies and gentlemen, people are amazed the damn things fly anyway. We do not, and I repeat, do not need to live on the outside of that envelope. I want you to stay focused on what you need to do for today, tomorrow, and Sunday, and then your trip back to your destination, whether it be another mission or back to your home. I do not want any of you concerned about anything except what you have to do to complete your mission, entertain these fine folks that have come from around the world. You're the individual, whether you're the man or woman, that straps that thing on your backside. If it doesn't feel right, walk away. We're here to have a great time. This event will go down in history, and we do not want any mark on it. Thank you. The only time I'm concerned about is the time that you're ready to either take off or enter the box out of an air start. You know how long it takes you to strap your equipment on, get your game face on, get yourself ready to go, warm the engine up and be ready. I do not dictate that time. When I want to fling you in the air or pull you into the box out of an air start, that's the time I'm concerned with. Mustang flight ops. Gentlemen, you're on.
Weather today. Observation this morning at 0537 local. Sky clear below 12,000, 5 miles wind calm, temp 55, dew point 55 with mist.
The airport layout itself. We have a set of parallel runways out here. I will be using both runways. When we've got Mustangs that are going to be moving around and these types of things, it will be a heads up type of thing because there's a possibility some would be landing on 5 right, some on 5 left. Emergencies. God forbid you come down to my show box like a bag of hammers, I'll have somebody right there to meet you. I guarantee it. If not, ladies and gentlemen, your first responsibility, get your craft under control, assess the situation, and then let me know what you need. I'm not a mind reader, but I will not pester you on the frequency until you get yourself in a position to where you can talk. During this period of time, the tower will have rolled the fire equipment, crash equipment, and they will be standing by. I will clear out heaven and earth. The airport is yours. You just let me know what you need. And everybody else will go VFR into a hold until we can get the situation under control. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you fly safe. I'll see you on the free.
What we hope to do today is practice day. We're going to sort of get our feet wet and, so to speak, or feet dry as it might be. But to practice what we're going to do for Saturday and especially Sunday. And Sunday's the big day. It's the culmination of the building block to take this thing up to that flight of 51. I've actually been flying the P-51 since about 1977, 78, and almost every day for 20 years now. So if somebody said, hey, what would you like to do? Go fly the 51.
challenges of organizing this type of event and how large it is, of course, is the infrastructure of putting all of this together and making sure that you have the correct parking, the correct, volunteers, the correct number of volunteers, accommodating the Mustang owners to the legends to general public. I mean, general public, that's what they're here to see, is the P-51 Mustangs in this incredible air show. When we did this back in 1999, we had 65 airplanes in Kissimmee, Florida. When we finished with that event, everyone said, let's do it again. And I said, no, it was my moment of insanity, not ever again. Well, here we are, 2007. In Rickenbacker International Airport in Columbus, Ohio, and we did. A little over 2 years ago, we made the decision to try this again, to try this event one more time, and it's fantastic. But organizing this size of an event takes a lot of volunteers, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of staff.
Well, we have a line boss who's in charge of all of us, and then we report to her, and then we just move. We're responsible for all the bombers. We're responsible for this area up here. There's no engine run around the crowd, so everything has to be tugged in, tugged out.
Mustang with my name on it, it means a lot to me, and I wish I could put my name on one of these F-16s.
If I knew you were here, I would have done it.
Yeah.
This is Saturday morning. Gates are open. We started at 8 a.m. this morning. People were in line. Lines long on all 3 gates that we have open. The sky is blue, and a great day for an air show today.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Rickenbacker and the Gathering. On behalf of Stallion 51 Corporation and the Gathering of Mustangs and Legends Foundation, I want to welcome you to the world's best air show. But more importantly, we've got 51 of the legends that made this airplane famous and represented this country and sacrificed when we needed them most.
We're about ready to launch in a 4-ship with Jimmy as the lead and Greg on left wing, and I'll be on the right wing, and then we'll have Steve Hinton in the slot, and we're going to do the opening pass with the flag.
We congratulate Stallion 51 and the Gathering Foundation for planning and presenting one of the most exciting and awe-inspiring air shows ever. Not only will you see history today, you will see history being made, and you will be a part of it. Thank you all for coming, and enjoy the show.
Our most dramatic mission was on January 1st, 1945, when 12 of our pilots were poised at the end of the runway getting ready to take off from an airfield in Belgium 15 miles behind the enemy lines. When it was called Operation Bodenplot, the Germans attacked our airfield just as these 12 pilots were taking off. And they were strafing and dive bombing our airfield. Those 12 pilots got into the air and shot down 24 German airplanes over and around our field, with German planes falling around our field, and lost none. And the most dramatic thing about it was that our enlisted men, our ground officers who had been supporting us and sending us out on missions for a year and a half, for the first time they were seeing their planes and their pilots in action, seeing their planes and their pilots shooting down enemy planes which were falling around them. And they were lying in slit trenches watching this air battle. To me, that was one of the most dramatic battles that we were engaged in.
The most numerous of the PT, or primary trainers, used by the Allies was the rugged biplane that traced its roots back to Lloyd Stearman's 1933 design, the Model 70. It became the Boeing Model 75. Also known as the Cadet, there were actually 3 Stearmans: the PT-13 with a Lycoming engine, the PT-18 with a Jacobs engine, and the PT-17 with a Continental engine, each producing about 220 horsepower.
You know, the show is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so people would say, well, we'll just show up Thursday night and start this. Well, no, we started here Sunday, last week, and get the groundwork laid, get the offices put up, get signs on, all this equipment you see in here, we had to bring. This building is really condemned. We had to turn it into the facility that we want to do. One of the things Lee also asked me to do, he goes, you know, air shows usually run with an air boss, but this is a themed event. This is not just an air show. It's all about the gathering of Mustangs and Legends and the legends who are here. He goes, can you help me run this? I said, well, yeah, if you'll let me run it like we do it in the Air Force. This is called the operations desk. This is what you'd see in a fighter squadron. Weather, schedules, and we do our Heritage Conference. This is the exact same way we do it. So if you want me to do it, it's going to have the rigor and discipline, and we're going to put it just like this in the Air Force.
Flight operations, we are here to help the pilots. We ask them to check in with us every day so we can provide them any changes of what's happening at the show site. If there's a change to the show line or change to the weather or change to the NOTAMs, we try to help them out with that and make sure that they're well informed. And it's extremely important that we're doing that because the FAA wants to make sure that this is a very, very safe air show. And we've had, knock wood, a very safe air show this weekend. Beautiful, beautiful weather, and looking forward to a great rest of the weekend.
For the Air Force, the Mustang typifies all of those things that we succeeded in World War II. Defense of freedom, defense of the free world. And for the Air Force, that's what we think of. Success in World War II, we think of success of the P-51 Mustang. And to be able to walk alongside these American heroes and legends is really humbling.
The Mustang is everybody's dream. It's the most famous airplane probably ever built. People that are flying F-16s, F-15s, even the F-22 Raptor, they all come down, they look at the Mustang and they go, wow, what a great airplane. You want to slap these guys in the face, but in reality they're looking at you and saying, this is my dream to fly a Mustang. And it is a dream, and it's the all-American dream. This is probably the airplane that is the reason why we're standing in a free country. I bought the airplane just because I was a kid and I always wanted a Mustang. But in reality, after you've owned a Mustang for 5 years, 6 years, the 10s and 20s people that hear that airplane come in, and you see them, they're all the same. And they're 70, 80 years old now almost 90, and they come up and they have tears in their eyes, and they touch the airplane and they're crying, and they say, this is the airplane, this is the reason I'm alive. All my buddies got killed. Bomber pilots, bomber gunners, whatever they were, they're alive today. When the Mustang came, they all lived. And it really, then you understand why you fly the Mustang around today as a historical event.
We're gonna go fly with the Raptor. Can you believe that? How cool is that? It's gonna be pretty neat. 3 Mustangs, all blue nose, Twilight Tear, I call her the Tear, Princess Elizabeth, the princess. Ladderback and Crazy Horse. So it's Ladderback, Beasley, and me. So we'll go on up and we'll do a 3-ship. The Mustangs will be in a Vic like that, and then the Raptor's gonna be right back there. We'll see if he can stay with us. Clear!
The jets were easily 100 miles an hour faster than we were, maybe more than that. And then so to catch them was next to impossible. It was impossible. But I happened to be at 12,000 feet and I spotted this Messerschmitt 262 down at 2,000 feet. And so I simply rolled over and started straight down. I was not going to let him get away. Got into compressibility, that is, the air is going over the wings so fast it doesn't touch the control surfaces. And so the stick was like it had come unhinged, and I had to forget the jet and try to live through this dive. As I got lower, it began to feel pressure, and I eased back, hoping the wings would stay on. When I leveled out, I found myself flying right up the tailpipe of the jet. And I only fired a very short burst, but I set one jet on fire and got part of his wingtip. I met the pilot in 1995, and he confirmed it's just the way I had said it. He was hit in the left side and wounded. He thanked me for saving his life, as he didn't have to fly anymore.
I'm Clarence E. Bud Anderson. I'm a Colonel in the United States Air Force, retired. I flew in World War II, and I was a triple ace, shot down 16 1/4 enemy airplanes. And I was a flight leader from day one in my combat career. Now the other thing you gotta have is the desire. Let's say, what's the difference between a good fighter pilot and a great fighter pilot? You had the same training, you had the same equipment, you got the same education. Well, I think it's something intangible. Call it a fighting spirit, call it something mental, whatever it is. I say it's motivation. You know, you had to want to do it. I was totally motivated to do it. I wanted to do it. And that's the difference between, being a good one and a great one, I guess. This is a P-51 Mustang. It's owned by Jim Hagedorn from Columbus, Ohio. He got the airplane from Jack Roush of NASCAR fame. And Jack restored it and then wanted to put it in historically correct paint scheme. So He selected my airplane, the airplane I flew in World War II. And my second tour was painted almost exactly like you see it here. Yeah. It's named after the most intelligent bird that flies in the sky. Now the crow is recognized as a very, very intelligent bird. But also my drinking buddies know there's a thing out there called Old Crow, good old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey.
After the PT, the primary trainer, an Army aviation cadet would move on to a BT, a basic trainer. If he mastered the more complex systems on that airplane, he'd meet the final step in his training, the AT, Advanced Trainer, the North American AT-6 Texan. Over 22,000 Texans were built between 1938 and 1945. Tens of thousands of Allied pilots earned their wings in this 5,500-pound, 600-horsepower pilot maker. For many, the next step would be the Mustang.
Everybody who's here at the gathering is here for only one reason. Those of us who flew in here, and those of us who didn't fly in here, we're here because we love the Mustang. You know, and this airplane, you know, it's kind of hard to explain. You know, I've said it before. It's kind of a skeleton key. It opens so many different doors of friendships and history and relationships and stories and fun and adventure, and it's an icon. It's like taking the National Monument for a spin. You know, it's full of the ghosts of everybody who was there in the past, and it's just amazing. So everybody that you see here and all this effort and everything that's gone into it, they're all here because of these great airplanes and the guys that were inside these great airplanes and what it represents, you know, those guys and this country and what we can do when we all get together and try to do something good.
The highlight of the weekend to me is actually going to be getting in the airplane and doing a solo demo, and then working with Ed Shipley and Jimmy Beasley, and sort of a teaser on the Horseman routine.
The gathering of Mustangs and legends continues as we welcome Lee Louderback of Stallion 51, the world's premier P-51 Mustang flight operation. 2007 marks the 20th anniversary of Stallion 51, and during that time, Lee has become one of the highest-time P-51 pilots in the world, with more than 7,000 Mustang flight hours. Lee's opening maneuver, a roll-on takeoff, is a tribute to the North American Mustang, World War II's greatest fighter. It's also a dedication to the legendary Robert A. Bob Hoover. Joining Lee for the opening part of his routine are Ed Shipley in Crazy Horse 2 and Jim Beasley in the P-51C Princess Elizabeth in a rare three-ship Mustang formation performance. The Mustangs were known by American bomber crews as the Little Friends, escorting the B-17s and B-24s all the way to Germany and back. The fighters were there to engage the Luftwaffe's Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs and keep them away from the bombers, the Big Friends. The presence of the Mustangs greatly increased the survivability of the bombers and saved literally thousands of American aircrew members' lives. He began with a roll-on takeoff and now finishes with a victory roll. It's Lee Louderback and Crazy Horse, the TF-51 Mustang from Stallion 51.
Most people don't realize that this airplane's a 12,300-pound airplane, so it's a big airplane. But it's got a very wide gear. Spitfire's probably a little squirrelier, narrower gear, but it really is a wonderful handling airplane. But it's got a laminar flow wing, so it's tricky. It likes airspeed. I like to be 200, 220 as a minimum, but it really loves being 290, 300, 340. It's one of the greatest airplanes I've ever flown. In fact, it is the nicest airplane I've ever flown.
Compare this to a Formula One race car. It's 1,490 horsepower, and it's got enough power. If you push the stick forward too fast, the torque on the motor will spin the airplane.
We all fly formation together. We have dinner together. We fly air shows all over the United States, and it's just kind of like, it's almost like it was back in World War II when you were in a squadron and everybody was really close friends. It's kind of the same thing.
These are guys that just love aviation and love old aircraft, and trust me, they got to do it out of love because there's no economic sense to what we're doing.
I'll tell you one mission where my flight leader and I were the only two in the sky. We couldn't find anybody else, and we're starting back to our base in the Ukraine, in the Soviet Union. And the flight leader thought a third man was coming up behind me. I was guarding him, he was guarding me, until he thought I was the third member of our flight, until the plane started shooting. It was a Messerschmitt 109. He made mincemeat, Swiss cheese out of my right wing. I didn't know it. He shot my canopy off, evidently, with the first round, and the bullet exploded and knocked me out. And when they checked the airplane, it kept flying. When I came to, my shoes were frozen from the dew that I had walked through going to the airplane in the morning. It was so cold. And the wind was blowing all the way around, and I was a little disoriented, but the airplane, the P-51, was flying straight and level at 20,000 feet, right by itself. So I flew on back. They found out all 4 propeller blades had been hit. The tail, half the rudder, half the elevators had been shot off. There was a unexploded 20-millimeter cannon round in the gas tank behind the seat, and the airplane still flew me back. So I've got good memories of it. It's a good friend.
The sound of the engine, whether it's taxiing in the air, high speed or low speed, it's very distinctive, and once you've heard it a few times, you don't have to look. You can just say that's a P-51, you know it. A wonderful little airplane, good from the ground to 35,000 feet.
It's sexy sitting there. The sound is amazing from that Merlin V12, and I think probably everybody who flies airplanes when they were a kid built a model of a P-51.
It's a dream airplane. It's a dream airplane.
Well, it was probably the most popular airplane in World War II.
It is the Cadillac of the fighters of World War II.
I talked to an airline pilot one time. He said he'd give up all of his ratings to fly the Mustang just once.
Many people say it looks right. No, it was a way of life for many of us, and we did it from sunup till sundown.
The Rolls-Royce Merlin engine is a magnificent engine.
Mustang's probably like an old vintage Vet or a Camaro or something. Just, it sounds mean. It's got the guts and the acceleration when you need it. It doesn't have all the fancy bells and whistles. It's just all about getting the job done.
It's sleek, it's sexy, it makes your heart pound. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. At least it makes mine.
What was your favorite part about flying a Mustang?
Well,
Probably the favorite part was you had a real good engine that didn't quit on you. I don't know anybody flying P-38s that didn't come home at least once on single engine.
Wow, jeez.
The main thing is, at all costs, maintain directional control. And I don't know, but it seems to me like that's not taught strongly enough in flying schools and all now, but that was one thing I mean, if you got to crash into the woods or anything like that, if you can
fly it all the way there,
fly it all the way down, you're damn flat better off than if you lose control and get into a spin or something like that. So, but with the P-51, of course, you had to be aware of torque, particularly on takeoff, and particularly if you got into like a missed approach or something like that, to go around. You only give you full throttle, but if you didn't get that rudder in there fast, you were in trouble.
The Texan wasn't only used by the U.S. Air Force. The Navy designated their Texans SNJ. The Canadians and British called theirs the Harvard. In no small part, the Harvard trainer was an important link in the development of the Mustang. Nearly 30 Allied nations used Texans or their variants. Some Texans even saw service during the Korean conflict, flying mosquito missions, low and slow over enemy positions, marking targets for the fast-moving jets.
They said they had a bridge up in North Korea, and it was a supply line for the frontline North Korean troops. And it was a very important strategic target. And they said, we bombed it many, many times, but it's still there, and they're still running ammunition and supplies to the front lines. And they said, we'd like you to go up there and see if you can knock it out. The colonel who was briefing us, he said, gentlemen, we've got a civilian flying with us today, and he knows more about our airplanes than we do. And he's going to be my number 2 man. And he had a 16-plane formation. And he said, I want you to remember one thing. He has top secret knowledge, and he's not to hit the ground alive if he has an engine failure or any kind of a problem. We've got to make sure he doesn't survive. And so I gulped, because I'd been shot down twice in War II, and I'd bailed out a lot of times in testing airplanes. So I thought, wow, I don't like this idea at all. At least I got to be a prisoner of war instead of being killed. But I was that dedicated, and so I went along. And the leader came in and pulled off, and I came in and I pickled my remaining bomb off. And I pulled up, looked over my shoulder, and the bridge was gone. And somebody in the formation said, hey, boss, meaning the colonel, who was the leader of our flight, you got a direct hit, the bridge is gone. And I thought, I don't believe it. I hit that bridge, and I know I did. I never saw his bomb strike anywhere. And the formation joined up. He still had both bombs. He had an electrical failure. And so now, all of these young fighter pilots, I'd heard them say, what does that old guy know about flying and fighting? And they didn't know about my War II experience. And boy, when we got back on the ground, they wanted to listen to anything I had to say. But that was another unusual circumstance, and one of my favorite stories. I was very proud of that particular mission.
Major Paul Moga, United States Air Force from Langley Air Force Base, Virginia. What the Raptor is, it's the present-day version of the P-51. You know, the P-51 was the best fighter that the world had ever seen. The Raptor coming online today is the best fighter present day. So they're pretty much the same, except, you know, a little bit different. I can only fathom what it was like back in the days of climbing in an aircraft and then taking it into combat after flying it 2 or 3 times. You know, just learning how to take off and land a thing, and the next thing you know, you're flying over hostile territory. you know, for me to be able to talk to these guys and listen to their stories and realize all the stuff that they went through to allow us to do what we're doing today is, for me, it's very special. It's a once-in-a-lifetime deal for us this weekend. So the jet's going purely off of GPS INS inertial to calculate what my attitude and altitude and airspeed are. So it's kind of like I think this is what he's doing. The weapons bay doors are what hide all the internal weapons. So, you know, when they built this aircraft, you can tell just by looking at and comparing it to an Eagle, it's about the same size, you know, as far as surface goes. But we took 8 missiles and 4,000 pounds more fuel and put it all inside of the jet. You know, something that's about the size of a microwave in an Eagle is about the size of a credit card in this jet. So when something goes wrong, instead of pulling out big, clunky line replaceable units, the guys just swap out these small, either credit card or about the size of a CD or something like that, and they all sit up there towards the nose cone. But when I'm flying, you'll see these things come down about 30 to 40 degrees.
And that's all automatic?
All automatic. One of the things that's really different about the Raptor is that I do not have any direct control over any control surface. The leading edge flaps, the nozzles, the ailerons, and the flaperons, and the rudders are all integrated into the computer. So when I'm moving the stick or pushing the rudder pedals, I'm just telling the computer that I want to do something, and it moves any combination of the flight controls to give me what I'm asking, whether it be pitch, roll, or yaw. It's difficult for me to describe in words how it feels to be able to fly in front of all the legends, especially guys like Mr. Hoover. I mean, I remember back in 1999 was the first time that I met Bob down in Geelong at the air shows down under in Australia. And I remember watching his routine down there and thinking, this is the most amazing guy I've ever seen in my life. And to have Bob come out and watch me fly this weekend, you know, is really probably my biggest inspiration in the air show world. Is something that I cannot describe in words. It is just an unbelievable feeling to have all the legends, especially one of the greatest legends with me this weekend.
Well, the first thing we had to do was get a design. It's better to start with a new airplane, clean piece of paper, and we can get the airplane designed, built, and out ready for flight in 120 days. It flew well, and the British liked it. And they gave us a contract for 320 with a price not to exceed $40,000 apiece. We all knew it was special when it rolled out the door because it was better, it was sleeker. It was more like a racing plane. It had very smooth lines. The cowling was tight around the engine, and we had a special airfoil in the wing which had just been developed by NASA called laminar flow, where the thickest part of the wing is further back, and it gives you a lower drag before separation occurs at the back end of the wing.
We had been flying P-39s for almost a year. I had 500 hours in the P-39, and they sent 3 of us to an English base to check out a new fighter. We had no idea what it was going to be. Well, the fighter turned out to be the Mustang.
The first one had the same Allison engine that the P-40 had.
Well, the main distinction between the A, which was the Allison engine one, and the rest of them was the ability to fly at high altitude.
The British had the Spitfire, which had the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, which had the Rolls-Royce had been developed through the Schneider Cup racers. It was a great engine, and the Spitfire and the Hurricane. So the Rolls-Royce got the idea, why don't we put our engine in the Mustang? Because the Mustang's better than anything up to 20,000.
That engine and that airplane, that airframe, that makes it really something that's very, very special. And every pilot who flies the airplane feels it. He has a feel for it, a real grasp for it. That thing was screaming. It was just screaming. That's why I'm wearing hearing aids now.
The average engine change on the P-51 Mustang was 120 hours for 15,000 airplanes that were built. So when you had something go wrong with it, you'd just take that engine out, put a new one in.
It was more vulnerable to hits from in the coolant lines. The P-40 coolant line was all up in the front. The radiator was right by the engine. So if you got hit in the coolant with either one of them, engine would freeze up in about 2 minutes, and you had to get out of the airplane by then. But the Mustang had the coolant lines further back, so you had a lot more area that could be hit in with small arms fire and knock you down.
There were 44 a day came off the assembly line in LA at the factory. And so 44 had to be flown that day so that there's room for 44 tomorrow. In the plane, it showed that it had been test hopped for 20 minutes when we picked them up. Well, I found out from the test pilots they'd never been off the ground. They sat in them and ran the engines up for 5 minutes, and then they got out and went to the next one. And so when I took off that first time in LA, it was the first time the airplane had been in the air, and it was pretty scary. You didn't know whether somebody had left a rag in the fuel line or maybe somebody had forgotten to put a rivet in. And you were taking off usually toward the pumping oil wells. And one night I had a bad dream about having to bail out on takeoff and having the chute hang on the pumping oil well and I'm doing like this, up and down, hanging on my chute. But I said a prayer every time I took off.
It was a plane that had the range that you could fly deep into Germany and stay with the bombers and have a combat and still fly back out again without running out of gas.
With drop tanks, it could fly 8 hours. You could go anywhere the bombers went.
I think it performed very well at high altitude, and we escorted the bombers anywhere from 20,000 up to maybe 30,000 feet.
We also had the big advantage that the Germans did not have, and we had the G-suit, that thing that you wore around your middle. They didn't have that. So when you got in a combat, if you pulled a lot of G's, you could tell when a guy was blacking out, because he all of a sudden his plane is starting to wobble, and we were still awake.
I think the Mustang was the key factor, and again, we're very, very lucky, the key factor that proved the turning point of winning the skies, air dominance, not only over Europe, but wherever the airplane flew, and it flew, as you know, from Iwo Jima to Tokyo. People don't know supporting the B-29.
My name's Dave Robinson. I'm a director on the board of directors of the Gathering Foundation, which is the sponsor here for the Gathering of Mustangs and Legends. In the air show, I work in the flight operations branch. My job is to work with the large formations. Well, Lee called me and said, well, I have this concept. And he goes, the World War II veterans, we're losing them at about a 4,000 a day rate. He said, I want to do another event, which we'll call the Gathering of Mustangs and Legends, the final roundup. Because I don't think we're going to have enough of these wonderful Americans around much longer to do this for them. He sent me a picture of Mustangs on a flyover that had the letters AF spelled out for Air Force. Because I want to spell out the number 51 with airplanes. And he goes, and I need your help to help me design how we're going to physically put that together from concept to flying it in the air safely and getting it done. If I had 100 Air Force guys that are fully qualified 4-ship fighter guys, I could put this together very quickly, but we don't. We have various skill levels. The core of the people we knew we would use is 9 of our heritage pilots are P-51 qualified. And they're known quantities. They've been through our entire program in the Air Force, and we know their skills. Each of these blocks is actually an individual Mustang, 37-foot wingspan approximately. So this is how we determine what it might look like from the ground as the airplanes flew overhead. So we have spacing here. This was generally a layout to tell us what the dimensions would look like, how many airplanes would take. In this case, it's 13 airplanes here and 7 for a total. It takes 20 airplanes to do it. There's normally about 3 feet between the wingtips of the airplane. That's about normal. In this particular case, we put an entire wingspan between the airplanes. And obviously you can't take off this way, so how do you get there from here? And you'll see these circles. That was, okay, this is a package of 4 that we're going to take off. That's a package of 5. That's another 3, 4, and 3. So it takes, in this case, 20 airplanes, how many separate elements we were going to use, and then how we would even taxi out and take them off. If Lee or I, the safety director, or 2 ops guys walk out that day and say, I don't think we're going to pull this off today, we're not going to do it. And we'll sit down tomorrow and have a flight briefing that'll take about an hour and a half with all the players and our ground ops people, because they have to tow all those airplanes out in the right order. So we have to give them a pilot's name and a spot number, and they'll have to hook a tug up and take every one of them out. The interesting part too is, this is what we want the crowd to see, but actually, that's what you'll see in the air. From my position, the safety chase, it'll be a 12. It has to look like that in the air to look like that on the ground.
There'll be more Mustangs in the air at one time than, again, any time, I think, since the combat days of the United States Air Force. And certainly of significance to this air show. That's going to happen only tomorrow, Sunday, and at the end of the day. And that's the way we're going to close the show, notwithstanding the missing man formation. So a very special thing, near and dear to my heart to try to put together. Enough airplanes, enough spare parts. I think we're going to pull it off.
Today is Sunday, September 30th, very last day of the Gathering of Mustangs and Legends. As you can see, it's a beautiful day outside, and it's almost 9 o'clock in the morning. We opened up our gates at 8 o'clock this morning, and again, tons of people, beautiful weather, lots of flying going to happen today.
We were attacked, the bombers we were escorting were attacked by the 262, the German jet, which was just coming into production with the Germans. And there's three of them that came down through the bomber straight down. And of course, their speed, we couldn't match the speed. We could turn with them. But anyway, I think they got one or two B-17s as they came down through it. And I called my flight leader and told him that I had one in sight, a jet in sight, and I was going to follow him. He said, okay, go ahead. So he was way out, just a little dot out in front, but I told my wingman to cover me, that I was going to not take my eyes off of that jet. So after maybe 3 or 4 minutes, I started closing on him. And of all things, I guess he was getting low on fuel or something. He started turning. Of course, once he started turning, I could cut him off on the turns as we came around. So I got close enough to shoot him down. So that was quite an experience.
One of the greatest things about being here this weekend for me personally is going to be the opportunity to actually walk amongst living legends like the women air service pilots from World War II. These were the original female fighter pilots from 60 years ago, and while they didn't actually fly in combat, they did ferry those aircraft, they did train our fighter pilots to go into combat, and to me, they are the reason that I am here today and able to fly on the United States Air Force Thunderbirds.
They obviously led the way for females to be able to get to fly combat aircraft. You know, that came in 1993, but they were doing this in World War II. So it's a great opportunity for me to get to ask them questions of how did they start, what was their favorite story, what kind of things did they do during World War II specifically, and you know, just to get to hear the road that they traveled and then compare it to how we are today and see where we're going to go in the next 100 years of aviation.
It's so funny, you thought we were too loud, huh? That's okay, we'll try and make it quiet for you next time. Well, give me a high five at least. There we go, nice.
I heard a story about Betty Blake once. I was at a WASP panel, and the WASP were all talking about Betty. She wasn't there. They're like, you know, Betty would come by, young and beautiful, blonde hair flowing in the wind, her canopy open on the P-51, and back in the day, everyone was jealous of Betty Blake, so it's an honor for us to be here.
She stretches things a lot, just like she does in the airplane.
Get out of here.
I talked to Betty Blake last night.
Yes.
And we had a good talk at the restaurant, the hotel.
Great, yeah.
And yeah, she was telling me all about flying the Mustang.
That's right.
She flew it a lot. What did you fly?
Mustang. I flew everything except the 38.
Really?
Yes, and I delivered, let's see, 8 Mustangs, I guess. My husband counted up. I didn't ever pay attention. I just took them back to Newark.
This is a C model. Did you ever fly the C with the greenhouse
I think mine
canopy?
will be. Mine will
okay.
Be.
So did you fly after the war? Were you able to keep flying?
I did not because it was so expensive.
Right.
And girls can't fly, you knew that.
Oh, I knew that. They told me that when I was a kid.
So, you know. And I told you that I was never, well, how can you possibly reach the controls in a 51?
Well, exactly. I can't reach. It's all on autopilot.
Is it? It lands automatically, too.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take any skill. It's sort of like driving a bus.
Just pull the throttle down.
I think our brief today is at 1:30, and it's a fairly intricate brief because there's a lot of formation changes in a lot of airplanes. So Lee Lauterbach, who's obviously putting on this great show here, and some of the other Air Force guys have put together a very meticulous brief.
Please respond with the airplane that you're flying, and if there's anything specific that you know that you need right now, let us know so that we can work that with ground.
Lauterbach, Crazy Horse 1, Beasley.
Princess.
Hagedorn.
Old Crow.
I'm going to request a check-in, and I want everybody to check in. And you're going to Mustang flight check-in, red 1, red 2, 3, 4, 5. Pick it up, white flights, snort, white flight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see if we can get that right, get everybody on. Hopefully you know who you're following. Any bets on how we can make this work? Okay, we're stacked on the runway. Mustang flight check-in, red 1.
Red 2.
Red 3.
4. 5. White 1. 2. 3. 4. Blue 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. Gray 1. 2. 3.
Okay, so we're going around the circle. We're going around the circle. We go on out. We're in this formation. We're all joined up. So stand by, Mustang flight, more 5-1. I'm just going to go to the side. Anybody lost? Anybody confused? Okay, let's go back into the original in-trail flight one more time.
So what we were doing was essentially running through kind of a dry run on the ground, exactly what we're going to be doing in the air in terms of maneuvers. And so it gives us a chance to kind of practice it here before we actually have to go do it up there. It makes everybody feel a lot more comfortable, like it's familiar, we've seen it before. It's all of our prep package for everything from the map for the route we're going to fly to the position we maneuver with, around the formation, around the track to begin with, and what we morph into. So, you know, this looks weird because it looks like a 12, but that's because it's a top view. And it's set that way so that when you look at it from the bottom, it's 5-1.
The air boss is given the command. It's time that we're going to go quiet and listen to the Merlins.
Here comes In the Sky, the numbers 5 and 1 as drawn by Mustangs in formation.
People to walk away from this event with a smile on their face and have a warm feeling in their heart that they experienced the Gathering of Mustangs and Legends event with us. You know, you take Robert A. Hoover, you take General Donald Strait, you take the Patello brothers. I mean, they're fantastic people, and once you get to know them and you get to know the Mustang owners that are here, there's friendships that will never go away, and it shows in their faces when they arrive here and they shake your hand and say thank you for doing this for us, because I think that it's an incredible experience for them as well, and we wanted to say thank you one more time.
And I tell people the greatest thrill for me is to have had the opportunity to fly the airplane, the greatest satisfaction. The second greatest satisfaction is the opportunity to share it with people who have the same passion and will never have the opportunity to enjoy it as I have been fortunate to do. And most of all, to share it with the guys from World War II who flew the airplanes.
When in the course of life's events, human rights are challenged, on the shoulders of our airmen are borne the angels' wings for peace. It is their task to chart the dangers in forging the winds of liberty. Let us not forget the freedoms they have won, the nation's safety they've reaped, or the vigilance they keep while we and our families quietly sleep. Those words penned by Chief Master Sergeant Kenneth Chandler from Luke Air Force Base. Our freedom is the legacy of their service and sacrifice.